Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow.
Awesome. Welcome to the 11th episode of the School of Athens podcast. We got another guest on here. So this is the third episode that we got guests on. So That's pretty cool. And so just to start things off, you can just introduce yourself, what you've been doing, how you were able to get on the palm. So just to start things off.
First of all, thank you guys for having us. Pleasure to sit down with you boys and actually talk and everything. My name is Hunter. We run a construction consulting business. And that's the way that we were able to get here, sit down with you guys and do what we're doing.
Awesome.
What's going on? Same thing applies. Thank you guys for having us. I'm Rob. We run a commercial consulting business, construction, very blue ocean market. We're not blending in with the crowd, and like Hunter said, that's how we're able to get here right now. I think that's the fundamental key is being in a blue ocean, paving a way based on other principles.
100%. We also,
things.
With our community as well, it's complete blue ocean. You don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel with like a new business model, but you can go into a different segment of the marketplace. Then it's like a blue ocean still. Yeah. So that's why also we are primarily targeting South Africans, because there's nothing like that there, and there's a deep desire for that. So even if it's like a boring business, like if you can say that, right? That's how you make lots of money, is by just doing the boring stuff like every single day.
Yeah.
And I think to just sort of give a brief introduction as to what this episode is about. So we're going to be talking about God, and we're going to be talking about business and how those two intertwine. So we are currently at Nick Setting's client retreat. We are in Dubai. Just look at the scenery. We said it in the previous podcast as well, but look at this. What is this, the Royale? What do you call this place?
Atlantis Royale?
Atlantis Royale. This is absolutely beautiful. We just, with the villa here, just rented with a couple of the boys. I think we're 7. And it's just such a privilege to be able to speak with everyone. And we thought we wanted to record this episode because we actually had quite an enlightened, conversation on the yacht that we had. I think that was on Wednesday. So I think I would like to start off by just sort of asking you boys. We are obviously here right now, and some people might want to know how we got here and sort of what principles we sort of base our actions on. And I would love to know what your boys' opinion is regarding, the impact of faith on your action taking, if that makes sense,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a topic that can go on forever. But, first of all, when it regards faith and action taking, the Bible has very, strict guidelines to the ways that you should be acting, the way you should be treating people, and the way you should be doing things. And when you follow these, just very broad, just being very simple with it, being righteous, just handling situations correctly, it's going to just guide your actions to the point where you're making the right decisions. And subconsciously, like when you ask God for direction in your thoughts, when you ask Him for eyes to see, you're going to see things, you're going to make decisions that you're not even at first going to recognize that is Him speaking to you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be acting and you're going to be serving in a way that is pleasing Him. And whenever you please God, whenever you please the Lord, that's when the fulfillment comes. Mm-hmm. And that's when everything starts to fall into place.
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is just the truth, telling the truth, being aligned with the truth, being honest with yourself and everybody around you. Because when you're not, it's kind of like you're painting a picture with invisible ink. Because it's like when you tell the truth, that's how you can be certain that you're on your path that God gave you. Because before you came here, He had already had a path paved for you. So when you tell the truth, you're aligned with that. And when you don't, on the adverse side, I'd say, like I said, you're painting a picture kind of with invisible ink. There's really no purpose. You're doing all of this work, but you can't even see anything going on, with that's why I said invisible ink, because you're painting, but you can't even see it. Because you can't see the fruits because it's not the truth. There's no purpose behind it. You're not following, your destiny. And as soon as you start telling yourself the truth, that's when you start to become fulfilled, because as soon as you become aligned with the truth, you can be certain that you're doing the right thing, because everything comes down to the truth.
Yeah.
Everything comes down to honesty. And as long as you're following that, I think, you're going to end up in places like this, because ultimately that's the path that God paved for you, but dude, it doesn't come down to this though, because when you follow the truth, you're in touch with the Spirit. It's not about the villa on the palm. It's about, like Hunter said, pleasing God. And when you please God, this is just what happens, collaterally. By nature. Yeah, by nature. I mean, just follow the truth, because then that painted picture with invisible ink it's going to start to bear color, and it's going to become a beautiful painting. But until you do that, it's just invisible. You can't see anything clearly. You can't trust yourself. You can't trust anything.
Yeah.
Well, so I just tried to get a verse, and it said, this content may violate our terms of use or usage policies.
What is that? That's ChatGPT, by the way.
Yeah, but I was trying to get the verse of seek God and all things will be.
Seek first the kingdom of God and everything else shall be given unto you. Something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you guys think about that? What does it mean to seek first the kingdom of God? Because I sat with this question a couple, probably a couple of months ago. What does it mean to seek first the king? Like, should everyone become pastors now? Like, well, what does that mean? Is to seek first the kingdom? Because I think, as soon as you become aligned with what God wants for you, I also agree. Everything else will fall into place. But, what does it mean to do that?
Yeah. No. I mean, great question. And one of the things that I strongly believe in when seeking the kingdom, when seeking guidance, is one of my favorite things to do is just sit down into prayer and just ask for guidance, ask for direction. And as you do this, the Lord always has open ears for any of his children, correct? Right? So he is going to put things into your life. He's going to put thoughts into your mind. He's going to indirectly start to show you paths to follow. And then now it is up to you. One of the hardest things, something I struggled with, was letting go of my own thoughts, letting go of my own opinions, and truthfully trusting God with everything. And that can be a hard thing, because it's like you have a boat, right? You have a boat and the engine is on, and you have to let him steer it. And you have to just ride it and trust.
Yeah.
And that can be a very hard thing, because while you're in the process of doing this, you just want to grab the wheel.
Yeah.
You're so used to making all your decisions on your own. You're so used to, trusting yourself over anything else. We have to put your trust into the higher power.
That's great.
You have to give up that wheel.
Yeah, we talked about this on our previous podcast as well.
Yeah.
It's the self-reliance thing. And I think in the short term, it's definitely... I couldn't say definitely, because more personal experience. Like, I'll focus more on self-reliance at the start. And the thing as well is it got you to your desired situation. Yes. So then you're like, oh, this has to be correct. But over time, it reaffirms it. But over time, it's like you don't know what you like. A lot of people say this, like, even the top guys, they don't know what they're doing. Like, no one knows what they're doing. And that can be very liberating as well. You think that these top guys that have everything, they know everything that's going to happen, they know the next steps, no one knows the next steps. So if you can just almost submit in a way and trust, it will work out so much better.
Yeah, I mean, it says right in Proverbs 3:5, do not lean on your own understanding. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to is, leaning and trusting God, submitting to God, because that's what it means, to let God lead your life. Not becoming a pastor necessarily, but leaning on his understanding, trusting him. Everything comes from that. Simply, it's just trust God. Don't trust yourself. Yeah. Because you are of this world. He is not. He's Alpha and Omega.
Yeah. How I came to sort of, how I tried to realize that in my own life, my own experience up until this point is that, because it's obviously very important to take action. The Bible also says faith without works is dead. And so I think it also comes down to, like, with a boat, but if you just see it more as like a rowing boat, it's like God steers, but you have to row. Yes. And so when God puts sort of thoughts and ideas in your mind and in your head, it's your decision to take action on it that's going to realize that. And so I truly believe this is that, God wants everyone to prosper, but he's waiting for you to, grab his hand, via faith. And so if you just go and analyze, I would say just all of our lives, like I think we can all relate to this. It's like we all took relentless action or reckless action to get here, but that was just like 30-40%, Everything else was luck or whatever, but you had to have faith that your action is going to get you to your ideal self and your desired goal. Because in the beginning, you have to take action with no results. And for you to do that, you have to have faith that this is going to happen. And if you pray about it and you believe that this is like the path for you, like that's ultimately the only way you can really do it. How do you take action without having faith? It's almost...
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Also, we talked just before we filmed. We said that everyone is really following biblical principles without knowing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like they're all, because every successful person first saw the vision before they accomplished it. There's no other way.
Yeah.
Like you first had to see yourself in the possession of you achieving your goals, because then that will you won't take action that are misaligned with your beliefs. So you first have to believe that you already made it, and then you will take the action required. So everyone is really following biblical principles, without knowing it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing why people are also following biblical principles is because, like you said, you have to have the vision first. But I want to know what you guys think. Where do you think that vision comes from? Do you think that you create the vision? Or do you think that vision is put to your head by God? Because me personally, I definitely think it's all God. He puts that vision in your head. When you're in the shower, all those visions come. You see yourself shaking hands with some of your idols, really. And I think that's placed in your mind by God to teach you how to believe, because you see that it can be possible. Like, for example, with ideas, leaning into ideas is something I think is huge, because ideas, they don't come from us. Like when you really think about it, ideas don't come from us. When you're sitting down and you're trying to solve a problem, you're focused on the problem at hand, but the idea then comes to you how to solve it. The idea comes to you. You do not create the idea, but you tune into the frequency of the Lord when you're trying to solve a problem.
Oh, wow, that's good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill talks about it a lot, tuning into the frequency. And once you're tuned into that frequency, trying to solve a problem, the ideas come. Adversely, ideas also just pop into your head.
Yeah.
You do not create these ideas. They come to you from Him.
And so tuning into the Lord's frequency, would that be like that might be where it ties into seek first the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
Because like what I started doing, this was actually what I learned at my church, or like, well, youth group is like more our, what do you call it? Like with like the youth come together, one of the members there told me, and I asked him like, how do I do this? And he just said, well, just pray before you do everything, and then just ask God to sort of bless this thing that you are doing, and invite Him in. And when you start doing that, you can then tune into the frequency. I would 100% agree with that. You want to say something?
Yeah, so it's actually extremely funny. Like, the science is now confirming the biblical principles. Like,
Yes.
it's now starting to confirm everything.
The Bible is science.
Yeah.
Yes.
So human consciousness may come from another dimension, according to physicists. So it's not you. It's not you. It's like it's coming from the infinite intelligence, like Napoleon Hill talks about.
Yes.
All these principles, like all this stuff, leads back to the Bible.
Yeah.
Everything. It's like the infinite intelligence. That's God, and and faith, and vision. That's also the faith that the Bible talks about. And I would like to know. Oh yeah, you already said you think it's from God, like the vision that you got. Yeah, I also think so, because now science is starting to confirm it.
Yeah, and then even going deeper than that, when you look at everything leading up to a position where the idea comes into your mind, that idea. So, for example, let's just say you're trying to solve a problem within your business. How do I systemize this process? Well, your whole life has led you up to that position where you're trying to solve that problem and where you need to tune into that frequency. And if you look back, your whole life has been paved by God. So it starts even before you get to that point. So that's just another reason to trust in Him, because He's led you up to the point where you need to tune into Him. And it's basically like you said, he's just been waiting for you to grab his hand. Your whole life led up to the point where you're trying to solve the problem, and you need to tune into that frequency. So it's without a doubt God when you look at it.
Yeah,
What do you
good.
think?
And also, I think I heard this from Taylor Welch. He's got the Deep End podcast. That's a big inspiration for this podcast as well.
Yeah.
Like, highly recommend you check it out. He's
Yeah.
next level. And he says, like, anything that is not God's word is a sin. So the opposite of faith is fear. So every time you fear, and also searched it, it's they tell you to do not fear 365 times in the Bible. So that's once every single day.
Every day.
Never fear.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, every day of the year, never fear. So if you are fearful that this won't work out, like, you are not following the biblical principles. You just have. It's literally, that's what I thought at the beginning. It's like delusional faith. But yeah, how do you compare that to like God's plan for you and that faith? How do you compare those two?
Yeah, no, and that ties in perfectly because one of my favorite verses when I was in confirmation, when I was in the youth group, when I was about 14 to 16, when I got confirmed, my favorite verse was always, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper." And I think that this plays just an enormous role when it comes into business because fear and worry are two of the biggest things that stop people from action.
Devil's advocate.
And
Yeah.
when the devil creeps in, the devil is the one that takes up free space in your mind. He will seek out corners. He will seek out anything that you have not fulfilled in your mind and plant these seeds. And when you don't have the Lord, when you don't have the trust, when you don't have the faith, this is when those ideas you let start to come to fruition. It'll stop you from action. It'll stop you from doing what you need to do. And it'll take, like when we were talking just recently here about the ideas that are planted into your mind. And you hear people even talk about it. Oh, I have this crazy idea. I want to start this. I want to start that. But oh, what will people think of me?
Yeah.
What will happen if I do this? That is feeding into the fear.
Yeah.
And every
Good.
time you feed into a fear, it's like taking a snowball and pushing it down a hill. And it just goes like this. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you put that faith into the Lord, it does the same thing, but with the Lord.
Dude, that is so good. And I think like Taylor also talks a lot about this. It's like, because he runs like, I'm not actually 100% sure what he does, but it looks like he does like business coaching or like whatever for like very successful business owners. And so he always tells them, if you want to straighten your life out, you can go two routes. You can either go the scientific route or whatever that's going to be a bit difficult or just takes longer, or you can just go according to the Spirit, and that's just going to be so much easier. And to just like sort of bring those two together, talking about living or becoming the embodiment of what God wants you to be and what He believes you to be and what He says you are in the Bible. When we do like our self-transcendent worksheet or affirmations, visualization, all these things, is we are basically just trying to convince ourselves, that we are this thing or whatever. But like that is a biblical principle, is we are eliminating all the fear, all the doubt, all these things. And that is just a biblical principle. Like, and I think I want to press on that because that's so important. It's because in the beginning of my, self-improvement journey or whatever, I read a lot of books, okay? And so I read everything from psychology to like Jordan Peterson, Marcus Aurelius, philosophy, business, everything. And I got a lot of, peace out of reading those books. And I was like, wow, like these humans are so smart. It's like, wow. And then I started implementing those things, and then I became very self-reliant. It's like, oh, it's me that did all that. Like that's where pride came from. And I truly went down a route that I don't want to go down anymore. Like I was not in a good headspace. And that's the thing, like pride leads to a lot of things that you become unaware of until you step out of that and look back on it. The Bible says like I was blind and now I can see. And that's exactly how I feel or how I feel right now. And so what I want to say here is that like Jordan Peterson, Marcus Aurelius, all these guys, they are speaking about these things that are biblical principles, and that's the anointing comes from the source, and like when you're reading that, it's almost a regurgitation of the Bible, and that's what it actually is. If you read all these books, everything, bro, it comes down to the Bible. Just read Proverbs and it will change your life. Yeah.
Here's a nice verse on pride. So when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. So
Yes.
and was it Solomon also asked, the one thing he asked for is wisdom, not all the material things. Even though that came with the wisdom, it's not the main thing. Like how much more valuable is wisdom than silver and gold, you know? But I think it's very difficult to get to that stage if you haven't acquired the material things first, right?
Yeah.
It's like people say, oh, money won't make me happy, but they're broke. Like you first need to, I think you first need to get the money, like buy the material things, get that out of your system, and then you realize, oh, it's not all that. Like there's more to life than just getting material things. But people, you know, work their entire lives until they're like 60 chasing the material things. So they live like 50 years, 40 years without God in their life, just because they seek that first. So our main goal as well is to get people money as quickly as possible. Like that's our main goal. So then from there they can focus more on the, you know, the more important things in life.
Yeah. I love that, but at the same time, for me personally, when I was broke, when I was starting everything out, when I made the transition from, you know, I always used to say I was a Christian. I went through the confirmation, I went through the schooling, but did I truly act in a biblical way?
Yeah.
Did my actions align with what I was saying? No. When I made the decision to switch that, when I was broke, when I had basically, I mean, speaking in terms of now, no money. I mean, virtually none. That was when I found God, and that's when I started following His Word. And I remember just having nothing and praying to Him. And that's when I started to derive this love and this trust. So for me, I found it when I was at my lowest point. And finding it at your lowest point and asking Him for guidance in like Proverbs, by far my favorite book, because everything in there is so applicable to what you are doing every single day, the way you are thinking every single day. And when you can take that and you can take it out and you can take that and act like that, you can put it into your mind. It's just like all these psychology books. When you read these psychology books, it almost takes it and flips the script and says, hey, this is you.
Yeah.
This is your mind. Take control of your mind. And it's like, well, when you read it out of the Bible, it's like, yes, it's your mind, but who's doing the input into your mind? Well, it's God. And trusting this, for me, helped me get to the point where I could have all the material things, where I could be sitting on a palm in Dubai. And having that love and trust is really what just slingshotted me forward.
Yeah, I mean, like he said, everybody and all these books are like, it's your mind, develop your mind, this, that, and the other thing. But it's like, okay, who created our minds? Who created our minds? At the end of the day, you gotta give credit where it's due, and that's where everybody falls into a pitfall, and then it just goes downhill. But I think you should touch on before joining EPG. That day, that moment.
Yes.
But first, what you were saying, you said, I think you have to have material goods first, but we all just said that we had this underlying faith before we even knew it. So I don't think it's necessarily you have to have the material goods first. I think faith always comes first. But you don't necessarily have to know it because we didn't. Yeah. But I think what you're trying to get at is you can explore that faith after you buy back the mental real estate with, the things you derived from your unknowing faith. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But that was me personally. So I had to first get that because I focused a lot more on self-reliance at the start because I know it's a cop-out, but I didn't have time to read the Bible and stuff. I was just focused on making money, and that's why I was able to also achieve it so quickly. And then you realize, I can't do this on my own. There's no way. But that first part, I think it's just you focus so much on yourself and unconsciously also following the biblical principles without knowing it. So I think when you just read it from the start, I think it will help much better. You won't be so anxious as well. It's you're operating out of the state of survival completely and not abundance at all.
Yeah.
And that's also why the rich get richer, is because they transcend that survival state and go into a more abundant state. So then they don't really care about money because they know that it gets printed every single day.
Yeah.
It's extremely abundant, and your most scarce resource is time.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why the rich also they focus a lot on time management, who they spend their time with, what they do with their time every single hour of the day, because that will then dictate, how your life will look like.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think that's such a good sort of topic to divert into. We spoke about this on the boat as well. Is you're not just completely lost. What did you just say now?
Survival mode.
Survival mode and abundance. This is so crucial because we actually spoke about like what is, and Andro just sort of touched on that, is in the beginning we all tend to operate out of, or like most of us tend to operate out of a place of survival, because you either want to, it's like a negative emotion. It's like you either want to prove someone wrong, prove someone or yourself right, or like, I don't even know, but it's you're not operating out of a good place, because you put food on the table, and it's just a battle of like 14-hour work days, 10-hour work days, 8-hour work days, and in that state of mind, you must almost look at it like a primal aspect. It's when you're in survival mode, you can't think long term, and you don't really make great decisions long term. You just worry about running away from the lion now. No, at any cost, whatever. Whether or not you break your leg or what, as long as you can, get away from this lion, we good. And that is what it is to get from 0 to 5, 10K or whatever. You're in survival mode, but that doesn't mean, and that's not ideal. You want to operate out of a place of abundance to be able to look long term at things and make decisions that's going to set you up for success long term. And in that beginning stages, like Andro just said, now you're very anxious, especially if you are not following the biblical principles. So what is your thoughts on that? Because we had a very good conversation on the boat regarding this topic.
Yeah, I would say when you're from 0 to 10K. It's like they just said, you're very anxious, you're very fearful, you're like, I need to do it now. You're like, I need this 10K a month. But you should sit back and you should understand what you're actually trying to do. And I think what you're actually trying to do is buy back mental real estate. You're trying to, that 0 to 10K a month, you're trying to buy space in your mind to operate at a long term. So the survival mode is completely necessary.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about this now, because if you're starting out and you're beginner 0 to 10, 5 to 10, 10 whatever, you feel this survival state, and like I said, it's completely necessary, but you have to understand why you feel that. Why do you feel, because you're not trying to get to 10K to put food on the table. It's completely different. You're going to work for 12 hours a day, but you have a house, you have a roof over your head, you got food on the table, so why are you really trying to do it? What is the food that you're trying to kill for the night? And that food is mental real estate. You're not trying to get the 10K a month. You're trying to buy back your mind because you've lost it in this fast-paced world. You're so focused on this world. But when you're at 0 to 10, if you're focused on him and you're focused on the spiritual world, not the flesh, and you're operating in a place of spirit, that 0 to 10K a month is going to come so much faster because you realize, okay, I trust him. I'm going to get there. I know if I just follow his lead, follow his guidance, he will allow me to bear fruit in the world, in the physical world through the flesh, which is buying back the mental real estate, which is what you're really trying to do. So you're not trying to put food on the table. You're trying to buy back mental real estate. Okay? So reverse engineer that. How can you buy it back? Well, I think starting point is trusting in him. Because if you trust in him, he will allow you to bear the fruits in the physical world, and the fruits of the physical world are buying back mental real estate. So that's what I would say. I'd say you need to operate at a place of a survival, but if you want to get out of that place faster, you have to understand why you're doing it. You're not doing it for the 10K a month. You're not doing it so you can, you're not doing it to get here. You're doing it to buy back mental real estate. And once you understand that, and then tie that back into your trust for him, dude, you're gonna speed up so fast, dude. So fast.
And also, when people have these desires, it's not even their own usually. It's like they want to make 5, 10K a month. That's called mimetic desires. It's a very cool topic to talk about. And I think when you see these videos of maybe, like sitting on the palm, like now you think you also want to be there. You have to realize it's not your desire. It's like you have to sit down and really think and just meditate on what you want out of life. And sometimes I wish I could be happy with like just normal, because it's a lot of stress to go through that. But do you think it's like God's vision, so you can just the human sacrifice is literally that, like you're just putting on so much pain and effort and sacrifice for nothing really, like an extra 10k, let's say you're making 100k a month, like extra 10, 20, 50, like it's not going to change your life much, but it's more for the greater impact, so you can go through that sacrifice and burden all that pain to ultimately give people wisdom, so they can live their lives better, more peacefully.
Dude.
Yeah. And I think a big part of getting to that level, getting to that next stage, comes back to serving. Okay? So, in the Bible it says, you reap what you sow. And when you're sowing, once you finally start to reap, once you get that fruit, and once you start to extract it and you're getting what you have finally worked for, and once you get to the spot where, okay, you made it through your survival state at 5 to 10, you're now, let's say, at 30, 40. Okay, now you're at a point where you can serve, and you can serve others. And like for me, that was a very big thing in why I'm doing what I'm doing, is I'm a very big family man. I know that you guys are as well. Okay, so once you get to a point where you're in abundance, you can stop thinking so much about, okay, well, I need to systemize this front end so that I can get 12 appointments today, and I need to sit at my desk for the next 14 hours. Okay, you're out of that. And now you can say, hey, family, mom, dad, let's go on a trip. Hey, let's if you have a younger sibling, where do you want to go to school? Do you want to go to school? Hey, go to grandma and grandpa's house. What do you need help with? You can start to flip this over because you have now bought back that time. You bought back that mental real estate, and now you can serve. And serving is something that is so instrumental in the Bible, and I feel like it should just be instrumental in everyone's life, is helping God's people. And once you get out of that survival state, and once you're operating from abundance, that's where you can really flip that switch back on. That's where you can dial back in to what you want, because you have that mental real estate and you can now focus on different things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's actually quite, because I think a lot of people it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to serve once I have achieved this or that money, or, if I have that. And then it's like when you have it, it sometimes might be difficult to give it away,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people say money doesn't buy happiness or whatever, but it's like, try giving it away, that will bring you a tremendous amount of happiness, and I think it's good. It's like the cross is, for me, is the embodiment of burdening suffering. It's like purposeful suffering, actually. It's picking up your cross and bearing that upwards. And I also think, and that ties so well into what Hunter and Rob also just said right now, is you're burdening this responsibility to be able to take care of the people around you. And I think if everyone just picked up their cross and started burdening that forward, I think the world would just be such a better place, And I think that's just the best way to start on your not like self-improvement journey or whatever, but it's like, just start. If you don't know where to start like burdening some responsibility, Try and take care of something or someone, or, make, like, that's cliche, but make your bed, Take the responsibility to make your bed. And then one responsibility leads to another. And the more responsibility you can burden upwards, in a purposeful direction, that's where things are going to start happening for you. And so a great question I would love to answer or ask you guys is, and this is very cliche, but I think it's very important to and really become mindful about this question, because it is cliche, but if you really try and or let this sink in, you can really get a lot out of this. So let's say if you take back your 3 years ago, okay, your 16, 17, 18-year-old self, what would you tell him before you started with business? What is like the number one thing? Like, you have nothing. You have no idea what business you want to do. You don't know what your goal is. What would you tell your younger self with the same conviction as, telling him now to go and buy Bitcoin 10 years ago? That type of conviction. Like, bro, just do this and you'll be good.
Yep. Yeah.
What would you tell him?
Yeah. No, and there's a there's a very good image that I want to reference as I answer this question, and it's about 5 to 6 people, and they're all carrying a cross over their shoulder through the desert. They're all carrying it. As they go, there's one person who keeps saying it's too heavy, and he keeps stopping, and he saws off a bit of the cross each time, making it shorter. And he finally gets to the point where it's very easy to drag. And next thing you know, they get to a cliff, and everyone else lays the cross down and is able to walk across to the other side. And the guy that cut it down cannot get to the other side. And so with that, and going back to what I would tell my younger self, is trust and no shortcuts. Because when you're in that state where you have no idea what you want to do, you have no money, you have nothing, you just want a fast and easy way to get there. And I would go back and I would tell myself that the hardships and the trust is what's going to build you to the point where you can get to where you want to get. Because with the trust, you're not going to mind the hardships. And the hardships are what make everybody want to stop, what make everyone want to quit. But when you have the trust and the reliance of God, you're not going to question those hardships because you know that it's another brick in the path. You know that you're laying this foundation to where you want to go. And when you have these two things that are in your back pocket, everything's going to make sense. You're not going to question anything that happens. You're not going to get scared when things don't go right because you have the trust and you're just going to keep going. It's just not going to be, it's not going to be a question in your mind of why is this happening? Why is this so hard? Yeah. You're going to understand why it is.
That's good. I actually want to read this. It's a pretty long one. It was from Alex Omosi actually, and he's mentioning, and he's like this big nihilist as well. Like he doesn't believe in anything, and they all come back to the biblical principles. Like, just want to read this real quick. So, imagine you're talking to God about the person you want to become. You say, "I want to be courageous." God replies, "Then I will give you monsters to terrify you so that you can conquer them." Yes. You say, "I want to be patient." God replies, "Then I will make you work harder and longer so you can learn to wait." You say, "I want to be wise." God replies, "Then I will give you the failures that will crush your spirit so you can learn the value of judgment." Then you then say, "That sounds like a hard life. Can you give me a good life?" God replies, "Just like we measure the quality of a blacksmith by the strength of his steel," I can't quite see this. "I measure you by what you are at the end, not the fire and the hammer it took to make you." A good life isn't an easy life. A good life makes you into a good person, and that, my child, is a hard life.
Yes.
So that comes from Omosi.
Yo, that is amazing.
Yo, it's super good. I think tying back way before what Quinton just asked you, Andro, you asked, do you think enduring that pain and sacrifice, what do you think of that? I think it's like, just look at this symbol. Just look at what Jesus did for us. He endured all of that for his love for him. And once you understand what this symbol really means, you find peace and serenity in the pain and suffering. So now answering your question, what would I tell myself 2 years ago, a year? I mean, dude, a year and 8 months ago, I had $3 in my bank account. $3. And then all of a sudden, I was just like, F it, I'm gonna do this. and then what I would have told myself is what Hunter said. Just keep going and tell the truth. Number one, tell the truth and keep going. Because if you tell the truth, you know that the truth, because if you're struggling with your faith in him and faith in yourself, you can just tell the truth and you get a little bit of both. Because you know that you're telling the truth, so you have confidence in yourself that you're doing the right thing, but then that confidence comes from the faith in him. So, alignment with the Lord. So if you're struggling with that, just tell the truth and everything will manifest from that. Jordan Peterson says it, don't lie, just tell the truth. Yeah. And I'm so big on that. And then second, like Hunter said, just keep going and just look at this symbol. I mean, you just have to endure every last bit of garbage and nonsense. Dude, another thing is, like, I started my business a year ago almost, and I had probably 2,000 no's. Like 2,000, just hundreds of calls, just F you, this sucks, what are you doing, this sucks. And then finally I'm like, and then I kept going, and I kept going. And then finally I had this guy who is now my mentor and the biggest, religious mentor as well, business and religious. And he's like, dude, this shit, this sucks, dude. What are you trying to do selling me this? And then he's like, but if you bought this, I would buy it. Or if you sold this, I would buy it. And I switched my business model. That week, I made 10K. 10K in that week right after, but it all came from keep on going. Tell the truth, keep on going, because I could have lied to the guy. I could have said, we do this, and told him what he wanted to hear, but it wasn't the truth. And if I told him a lie, then he would have bought something that I didn't have to offer. But since I told him the truth, he's like, dude, this sucks. But if you did this, I would buy it. So if I lied to him, I wouldn't have revealed this blue ocean, business model, this blue ocean. So yeah, a year and 8 months ago when I had $3 in my bank account, tell the truth and keep going. Yeah. It's so simple, so that's cliche, everybody says it, but it's so true.
Yeah, I think I said this in the podcast with Quinton, with our first guest, and I think I realized, I'll maybe even, reform my answer, but I said you have to identify a goal, and you have to fully believe that it's possible to achieve that goal. Now, you can go very deep in that. It's like, how do you believe it's possible? How do you identify a goal? What is a good goal, But if after hearing what you guys have to say now, I think to sort of reform that, or transform that in maybe a better perspective, because if you want to or identify a goal, it's a good way to go back to, okay, what does the Bible say you are and you are capable of being? Because from the previous statement that I made, it's like you have to identify a goal. There's a lot of things that go with that. It's like, okay, what is possible? Can I do it? What is a good goal? What's right and wrong? What should I strive for? What shouldn't I strive for? What is prideful? What is humility? Because a lot of people tend to be like, oh no, money is bad. That's the devil. You should be virtuous and be poor. It's like, what? What do you mean? That's stupid. But I do believe that if you take it back to the Bible, what does God say you are? You are, and that ties in with the belief that it's possible, because then previously I would say you have to believe it's possible. But how do you do that? It's like affirming it's possible. You have to it's so difficult to just believe and give yourself the permission to actually try and achieve your goal. And once again, if you take it back to the Bible and you just go and, okay, why should I believe it's possible? Well, because God said it's capable for you to achieve anything in His name. And so if you truly believe that to be true, everything else will fall into place. And so my previous two statements can all fall away by just saying, following the principles of the Bible, Maybe that is probably the one piece of advice. And to seek first the kingdom, that might tie back into that,
Yes.
Because what is it to seek the kingdom? Well, that's maybe your place to try and figure that out. Go and read the Bible. Try and figure that out for yourself, I think we all try and we all digest it in a different way, and we all want to put sort of a summed up, oh, this is what it means. Bro, the Lord can do whatever He wants, and He can say whatever He wants, and we don't really know what He means. That is your way. That's where the Spirit comes in. And where you have to pray about it and connect about it and wait for the Lord to tell you what He meant, via this thing. That's why I also believe that a lot of people that just read the Bible without the Spirit won't get anywhere near out of it as someone who reads it with the Spirit, because that's where it comes from. It's alive. The book is alive.
Yes.
And there's a reason why it's the most sold book. That's the thing that did it for me. When I was reading all the books, my dad actually asked me, okay, you're reading Jordan Peterson, you're reading Marcus Aurelius, all these things. Why haven't you read the Bible? It's the most sold book. The most read book in history. And I was like, oh, it's so cliche. It's the Bible. I need to read something for business.
Yeah.
And when I started reading it, it changed my life. Yeah.
I think we should touch on how the book is alive.
Okay.
And how to actually read and interpret the Bible, because something that you said there was, people are like, oh, you need to be virtuous, money is evil, money is this, money is that. But if you read the book with the Spirit and you saw, it says, and this is where it says very clearly, 1 Timothy 6:10, the love for money is the root of all evil. The love for money, attainment of money, striving for money, there's nothing evil about, that's not the devil, but it's the love for money. So it's like if once you read the book with the Spirit, you could actually understand and interpret that. But until you have that Spirit, you're not gonna understand that in Ecclesiastes there's every single business principle ever that you need to know. If you don't have the Spirit in you, you're not going to see that. If you don't have the Spirit in you, you're going to read that and say, oh, money is evil. Oh, I can't want money. I'm going to stay broke. What? It comes down to understanding that the book is the Word, the book is alive.
I actually want to know, what is your, or like anyone of you can obviously give your opinion, what does it mean to read the Bible with the Spirit? What is the Spirit, you know? Like, I got my opinion about it. I'll also say what I think about it. But when you say, like, when you're reading the Bible, it's a living book, and reading it with the Spirit, what does that mean? Just so that I know that I'm also, like, not doing it wrong, you know? Like, not that maybe you can do it wrong, but, like, I want to know what you guys mean by living in the Spirit. Let me just make sure the camera's still rolling, but you can answer.
Good.
I would say this is a tough question. This is a really good question.
It's a loaded question.
It's a really good question.
That's what it's about. You know, it's like we're not saying we got all the answers. This is all about, you know, a discourse between ideas and us trying to find the truth, you know, and that's why this trip is also that's why networking is so important, you know, is being able to communicate with like-minded individuals and coming to new ideas. Like, I believe the Spirit is here right now trying to, you know, convey a message, you know, and so, yeah.
That's a whole different area of conversation too, why network is powerful, because we need to save that, because I'll go on that. But I think reading the Bible and understanding how to read it with the Spirit, what is that? Everything, something my mentor talks about, everything comes down to the principalities. So you cannot, I'm not telling you what you can and can't do, but when you read the Bible, you have to read everything before and after the sentence that you just read to understand the principalities. You cannot read the words for their definition. You have to understand what do the words mean, because it's like when you're having a conversation with somebody, you can either feel heard and understood, or you can just feel like you can feel heard or you can feel understood. And those are completely different things, because if somebody hears you, they hear the words that you're saying and take them at face value. You know, if you say, oh, I love this, I love being here, somebody's like, oh yeah, cool, but they don't actually hear you or ask you, why do you love it? You know, they don't, you know. So I think it comes down to not reading the words at face value for their definition, but what is the message trying to be portrayed? You know, and then that comes down to seeking the truth. And when you seek the truth, you're automatically in tune with the Spirit. And I think that's what it comes down to for me.
I think it's also the intuition as well. Like everyone, I think at the moment, like that's my understanding of it, it's like that intuition. It's like you just know. I don't know how to explain that. You just know. And also every single hour of the day, you know what you need to be doing, and you know what you should not be doing. You know, and the easiest way to achieve success, like the fastest way possible, is just to do the things you know you need to be doing at all times. If you do that more, you'll achieve it quicker. And obviously, if you do the things you shouldn't be doing, like it will just take longer, or you won't even achieve it at all. And you know exactly what it is every single time. You know you should be doing the emails, doing the sales calls, but you're just doing nothing, just chilling, watching Netflix. Like you just know, and that's why I think also depression comes from. It's like you know what you should be doing, but you're not. So you're aware of that, and that makes you like depressed and anxious because you're not taking action.
So what do you think though? What do you think though about what he had asked? How do you read from the Spirit? How do you read it?
To be honest, I have no idea.
I think when it comes to reading with the Spirit, and to kind of piggyback off of what Rob said, I think a lot of it comes from a sense of alignment. Because when you're already... So like, I think that in order to read with the Spirit, you need to already trust in the Spirit and be acting in the way. Because if you just pick up the Bible and just say to yourself, I'm going to read with the Spirit, I don't think that is going to give you what you're trying to derive. But when you understand the message and the philosophy behind the Bible, and now you sit down and you start to read it, and it was like what you were saying with you just know. There's a sense, there's a feeling, just like when you do something that's really good, like when you help someone out or you do a very good act of kindness and you just get this warm, fuzzy feeling on the inside. You will get the same warm, fuzzy feeling when you're reading the Bible with the Spirit, because it is present. And the feeling, you can't even put the feeling into words because it's not human-like, it's God-like. And we will never understand God. And I think that is reading with the Spirit.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to sum it up. I think that's very good, you know. Yeah, I think that's good. For me, like how I sort of... That's a difficult question. That's why I wanted to ask it, to try and see what you guys say, because I'm also not really sure. For me, it was like when I heard that, or let's say previously when I didn't 100%, believe that this is, true, or when I wasn't really a believer, it was difficult, or not really, but like my doubt was just so much more than what it is now, it was difficult for me to read the Bible and be like, yo, really, did this really happen, and then like the oomph is robbed from that. But when you really sit down and sit with it, and then you read a verse, and then you incorporate the Lord, and you pray about it, like it's almost like the word is alive because it's moving. It's like then you'll hear something. It's then like the ideas come in, the emotions to that sense. Like I think there's so much more to it. I don't know, Rob wanted to say it, but it's more to it than just the words and the sentence. And I think that's so beautiful about the Bible, is that it's there's just so much to take out of it. But I wanted to touch on two things now, but I actually forgot what the one was. So I think
I've got one.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that are holding people back is actually because giving themselves the permission to achieve like the success they're after. That's literally the biggest thing. They feel like they're not worth it. It's like, really me? Like, can I do this? It's just giving yourself the permission because God already gave it to you. You just need to accept it.
Yeah,
and I think that's and with just believing. I mean, that's all it comes out. You don't have to do all these acts. I think in the Bible it also says it's not about what you do whatsoever. It's like just believing and believing you will achieve this goal.
Yeah, but I do think it comes down to what you do, though.
Yeah.
Because the reason I think that is because believing is doing something. So because
good,
what is reaping what you sow if you're not doing anything? Sowing is doing something, But for me, that's like I had to give myself a extreme permission because for example, I used to be a horrible person to people, to just life in general. And then when I started getting into business, I'm like, oh, do I deserve this? I was so scared of success, and that was, a pitfall for me, and that's why I just kept hitting this. I kept hitting this wall because I was worried about my past, not understanding that I've already been forgiven. And, it's so easy to fall into that because you have to understand that, like you said, you've already been forgiven. But I would argue that you have to, you reap what you sow, and you have to do something in order to reap what you sow, because sowing is doing something.
Yeah.
So for example, what Hunter said earlier, the devil tries to get into your mind in every way, shape, or form. And the reason that he can get into your mind is because you've left so much space there for him to get into there. Yeah. But if you eliminate that space with belief and faith and the word, there's no more space left. The devil has a hard time getting into your mind. You stop fearing success. You understand that you've been forgiven, and now you prosper. And that is doing something. Eliminating that space is doing something. Yeah. So now I'm at the point where we're on a palm, because I've understood that I've been forgiven. I filled that space, and now I'm reaping what I sow.
It's also faith without works is dead, right?
Yeah,
But also it starts with a faith, though.
Yeah.
Because you won't act if you don't believe it's true.
So here's what I want to say, because I remember when I was just starting out, and I was watching all these videos trying to get answers. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But people talk so generally. And I feel like right now we're talking about faith without faith, faith without works, etc. But how do you get to the point where you become faithful. I think that's something that would be super valuable to touch on. How did you guys get to the point where you started to really dive deep into your faith? Because we're talking about faith and how it allows business success, but how do you get to that point?
Just remember that question, because I just want to say, like, guys, we are enduring the heat right now, the Dubai heat. Like, just look how we are sweating right now. Okay, so just leave a like or a comment or something, bro. Like, really, like, I think we deserve this. We are dripping right now. But yeah, what a privilege it is to be able to have this conversation right now in this place, like Dubai. Like, wow, this is amazing. So how did I get to
develop the faith?
Develop the faith. And this is actually the question I wanted to ask previously was, but I'm going to try and answer it as well, is in the beginning, and I think, I'm going to ask my questions that I don't forget, is do you believe that you can reap the fruits of the Spirit without being a believer? So that's something I want to talk about now. So, but in any case, so to answer your question is, how I did it previously was I didn't really bring the Lord into my development phase when I started, because I wasn't really that, I don't know how should I say, like, I wasn't going to church at that stage, you know. And so for me, I was trying to convince myself mentally, like, oh, I can do this, you know, oh, I can have faith. I'm going to try and allow myself, because I struggled a lot with self-belief, you know, like, can I even do this in the first place, you know, like trying to pursue like agency or like whatever, like business, building our community we're currently building. It's like, it's a very big, crazy thing, especially if you are comparing it to everyone else. It's like no one else is doing that I know of, except for obviously me and Andro now. And like obviously like networking, that's why we're doing this. But how I did it was I was just trying to convince myself mentally via self-transcendent worksheets, affirmations, visualization. But obviously having the Lord now, this is actually a very cool thing, is we are and a lot of non-believers is following once again the biblical principle of trying to just mimic what God already believes you are. And it's so easy to just like to Taylor Welch, is it Taylor Welch?
Yeah.
He also says that, you know, just doing it according to the Spirit is so easier, because you just submit and just follow what God believes you to be. Now, if you want to try and do it in your own way, scientifically, trying to work with like your brain or whatever, it's like affirming it, visualization, whatever, there'll always be an underlying feeling of like, or like, I'm just faking this because it's me, you know? It's like, it's that self-reliance of like, I did this. And it's like, but did I really do this? Because like 3 years ago I couldn't, and I was fat and whatever. Like, and who am I really? You know, then you like caught up in this fake illusion of you trying to fake the ideal version of yourself. Because I believed up until this point, I really believe, I think I changed that now on this podcast, is I believe it's like you can only, when you start hitting the gym, you are small and let's say maybe skinny fat or whatever, and you want to be big. For you to be able to continue to hit the gym, I believed you had to fake it because your fruits of your labor is delayed. And so you don't see the fruits of your labor, and so you're still skinny fat while you're hitting the gym, but you somehow have to convince yourself that you're not going to be that. And so you become the embodiment of this fake gym guy without really being it. But after 3 years, the only thing that's left is the gym guy, and that skinny fat guy falls away. Then that is you. But in between that, it feels like a delusion and you faked it. I don't know, that's my thing. But if you even go to what Taylor says, is, you know, if you just go to the Spirit and you see what the Lord believes you are, then that is true, because you just attach to that. And that's what where the faith can come from. So, but that's how I sort of did it, was just via affirmations and stuff like that. I think that's still important though, but you have to realize where it's coming from. It's not you. It's not you changing yourself. I think coming back to the Bible and trying to figure out what that is, comes, and then you don't know what I mean, then link it from that. That's sort of how I did it.
Yeah, the way that I truly went about it for myself in developing my faith and getting to that point to where now I feel so strongly about it, I want to sit down in front of a camera and talk about it, is back 2 years ago when I was getting into all of this stuff, when I was just broken. I came out of a relationship that meant the world to me, and it ended tragically. I didn't have any money. I was basically just repairing my whole life. I had just done a lot of things that led me to a situation that was just unideal. And I had this feeling in my stomach of literal brokenness, of just like you just have a rock in there. And the way that I came to turning to faith from that point was, honestly, I had a dream. And it says right in the Bible that the Lord will come to you in dreams. And I had a dream of this ideal life. I had a dream because I wanted it so bad, but I was so broken, I was so distressed, and I was just unhappy with everything and anything that was going on. And I had a dream that everything was as I wanted it, materialistic wise, family wise, and love wise. And I woke up, and I remember I had this feeling of peace, of just straight peace. And I'm like, where did this come from? Where could have this come from? You know, I'm just like, this was amazing. And for me, going through the confirmation and stuff, like, this is personal, but even if I hadn't, it's an overwhelming sense of peace and of vital reassurance that it led me straight to, it has to be a higher power. There's just, even if I hadn't had any religious background, there's no possible way that I could have had that experience and not have drawn it to a higher power. It was just unhuman-like. And that's what made me open up my Bible. And that's what made me start reading my Bible. And as I read my Bible, this feeling of guilt, this feeling of sadness, and this feeling of just lack of everything that I wanted started to come back, because I developed the faith that it was coming back. And it was like what you were saying with the gym. You know, you just have to stay in the persona of the skinny fat guy until the skinny fat guy is gone. I had to stay in the persona of I'm broke, miserable, and unhappy, but I'm changing. And as you're changing, the Lord comes to you, and he will reaffirm to you that what you're doing is right. And then your faith is just compound affected, because you get reassurance on what you're doing, it being the correct thing. And that was really how my faith really started to get very strong.
How long are we rolling now? You know, and Dave Ramsey is also like a Christian, makes a lot of money as well. Very cool guy. And he says, if you don't know God on your way up, you'll get to know him on your way down.
Yes.
So
that's good.
Yes.
yeah, and it's
Hour, by the way. We're
that's
rolling for
also
an
an hour. Okay, cool. So and
That's crazy,
when you have to rely on this, you've focused on self-reliance at the start, like there will come a stage where you will just drop down. You will just like, shit will just hit the fan completely. And then at that stage, you will get to know God. But if you know him on the way up, like I think, if you know him on the way up, like you'll be fine. But there comes a stage where just like, shit will just go crazy. And then you're like, oh wow, I can't do this on my own. And then the surrender comes in. But I think it's very important to, if you know this and you know like stuff like that happens, to like, well, I'm dripping.
I just dripped on my shirt.
Bro, it's crazy out here.
It's
You don't even
insane.
understand, dude.
So yeah, it's very important. So when you see all these people, like they achieve the success, but then they just feel completely broken inside still, right? That also happened with Iman. Like he was making 100, 200K a month, 22 years old, crazy lifestyle. And he was just completely anxious, like just completely broken. And I know, and he's also, finding his, it's all personal stuff, but like he's finding his relationship with God as well. Puts it on his story, and I think it happens with everyone. So, yeah.
I also think it's almost impossible to deny God when you experience him. But it's all about like, can you allow yourself to experience him in the first place? Because when I started going to, how I really sort of or really found my way back to the Lord was when I went to a not really the church. I told myself like, I'm going to try and give this a go just like one more time, not that I was hopeless or whatever, but I felt like I was a Christian because of culture, and I was really like, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a Christian because I was born in a Christian family and all these things. Like I wanted to truly find God on my own way. And so I set on a odyssey towards trying to pursue God. And I was like, if he's real, I will find him no matter what direction I'm going into. And so I found a lot of peace in meditation, yoga, I read a bit of Buddhism or whatever. And so when the first time I went back to church, it was a good experience, but I was almost too attached to my ego to really like let that sink in and be submissive in that moment, And so I felt like when I got back home, I was like, nah, this was not real. Like I I didn't really allow myself to give this a go. And so the next Wednesday, I went to a youth gathering. Like, what do you call that? What do you call like a youth? A youth, whatever. So it was just like 12 of like young guys, or like I think we're like it's 18 to 24-year-olds, and then we're like, I think we're like 8 or 10 of us. And in that moment, and in the presence of that, when we would start praying and worshiping or whatever, like I could experience the Lord in that moment. And it was because I completely submitted and allowed myself to try and feel that. And as soon as I felt that, it was almost impossible for me to deny it after that. And I knew I would be lying to myself if I didn't try and pursue this thing. I still don't really understand it, and that's what this journey is about, for me. That's why I think this is a purpose for this conversation, and why I asked the previous question or whatever, is to try and figure it out, because I don't know how this is possible. Like I prayed to someone previously, and he started crying, and I was talking. I didn't even know what that's about, But after that, I had to sit down, and I was like shaking, and it was weird. Like, I don't know what that is, but that's the Lord for me, And when you experience that, it's almost impossible to not want to pursue that, because you want to try and figure out, like, how is this possible? And so that's sort of how I really started strengthening my faith, was spending time with Him. How crazy that sounds, is the more time you'll spend with Him, the stronger your faith will get, and the more power you get from the Spirit. That's sort of,
I think, and you said it. You still don't understand it, but you believe. And going back to what I was asking is like, how does somebody get started in their faith journey, in finding God and finding Christ? It talks about it in 1 John. It says, "Do not try to understand, but accept." And if you look at the book, and you look at how we're portrayed, us, we're portrayed as children, and our Father is writing a book to us, and we are reading it. So you have to remember that we are God's children. And what does a child do? A child doesn't try to understand everything. A child accepts. And as soon as you accept, that's when you can start to submit. And that's when you start to trust, and you start to read these things, and you're like, oh wow, like, because you trust it. And dude, like, for example, a child, he'll fall off of these stairs here, and he'll get hurt, and he'll be like, but he'll get right back up, and he'll say, oh, I'm not going to do that again. Yeah. It hurt. I don't know why. He's not like, oh, why did this hurt? Was it the velocity that I fell at? You're trying to understand everything. So when people read the Bible, they're trying to understand it. How is this even possible, they say? How is this even possible? You're trying to understand, but he clearly says, just accept. Just accept it. And once you start to accept, you can then read the book through the Spirit, because you're submitting and you understand the words. You know what I'm saying?
That's very good.
So that's how you start. And once you have that faith and once you submit, then your business, dude, you're at 0 to 10. You have that faith, bro, you're going.
That's so good.
You're going like crazy.
And
fast.
how would you say, do you accept it without understanding? Because a lot of people rely on their own understanding.
Yeah.
And I think we should definitely wrap up this podcast almost, because we got another call almost now. So we've been rolling for like an hour and like 15 minutes or so. So that's a good last question to sort of wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, I would say, hey, dude, if you're having a hard time accepting, look at where you are, bro.
Yeah.
What are you doing with your life right now? Where are you at? Are you happy? Are you content? But I would argue happiness. I don't think it's about being happy, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Are you content with where you're living? Do you feel fulfilled? No, because you've leaned on your own understanding. So clearly what you're doing doesn't work, bro. So why would you not seek advice from something much greater than us? That's how you accept. You have to have humility. You have to put your ego aside and tell yourself the truth. If you listen to us, we just gave you all the sauce, bro. Like, we gave you all the sauce. So in order to start accepting, look at where you are and be like, dude, this sucks. I did it myself, though. And because you got yourself to where you are and it sucks, you have to accept advice from other sources. That's how.
I mean, and just to add on to that, I think you'll be able to accept much easier when you experience Him. And so, like we previously said, seek first the kingdom, He who lives with pure heart shall see the kingdom of God. That's also a verse in Matthew, I think, somewhere. But the point being is that once you seek Him, you will find Him. But you have to seek Him. And I think it's going to be so much easier to accept like faith and to experience. When you experience Him, it will be so easy to accept it because it's undeniable. And so for me, when I sort of turned 18 and I started going to university or whatever, for like that first year or whatever, I really made a conscious decision that I want to find God, but I didn't put any labels on it because for me, I wanted to make sure that what I believe is true. And so like I didn't want to be a Christian because I was born in it. Like I wanted to figure out like, oh no, I'm not a Buddhist because of this. I'm not a Hindu because of this. Like I'm a Christian because of this. And when I spend time on different places and reading different books or whatever, I've never felt anything in my life as how I've felt while I'm in prayer with a community of like-minded Christians in one place. I've never experienced something like that in my life. And I would highly recommend go alone, go to a place, a gathering. The Bible is very clear on that, like a gathering of 2, 3, or 4 people, there I am. In the midst of them, there I shall be. That's like the church is the embodiment of the Lord. It's His bride. And it's very important to go to church. Previously, I didn't believe it was that important. And so, yeah, sure, like you can, read the Bible and watch YouTube videos and try and figure that out. But when you spend time with other people doing what we're doing right now, it's almost impossible not to feel it, not to feel that presence there. And then you just operate out of a place of, it's almost like a higher power. Things just start flowing. And when you're in that place and you really submit to it and drop your ego, and that's why I think it's important to go alone with people you don't know, is because then your ego tends to not be with you because you don't really care what the people think about you. And when you just allow yourself to experience that, like at least for me, that's sort of how I came to 100% believing, I guess. I don't know.
Great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, so I've got a good verse to wrap it up. So Matthew 7 verse 7. It's actually not loading, but I think you guys can finish it as well. So ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. And I don't know the last part. You guys maybe know the last part of that?
Ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
No, because so with that verse, I think it's something that ties into what we're talking about so extremely well, because it ties into faith. And it ties into, if you ask, you shall receive. If you knock, it shall be opened unto you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like what you touched on, Quinton, and what you said, Rob, with if you are struggling with your faith and whether you should believe or what you should do about it, is to look at people that do have faith. Look at the way that they are, not even the way that they are living, just the way that they are. Because for myself, when I go to church, I am greeted by some of the most happy and just carefree people in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, just amazing individuals. And that's like when we met you guys. We met you guys for the first time on this trip, and we sat down and we were like, Andro and Quinton are 2 of the most genuine, authentic people that we have ever met. It goes without saying that you guys are Christian and believers. You don't even have to say, because that's just the way that you act. It's in accordance. You don't have to question it. And those are the kind of things that if you are struggling with faith, I think you should try to derive that information. Because when you see that for your own self with your own eyes, you're going to see something that you do not have, and it's going to make you at least want to look into it.
I think it's a good way to wrap it up, boys.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It was awesome, guys.
Awesome. Plug the community for a second there as well.
All right, so just a shameless plug. If you guys listen to the absolute end, you are real legends. It's a long one. Just in the description, we've got the free community as well as 2 free guides. So you can just go to school.com/Athens for the community, and also the schoolofathens.com/guide. 2 free guides on how to make money online, how to live a healthy lifestyle in order to then fuel your money-making activity. So all those links are in the description.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we made the community, is to be able to do things like this, have conversations with like-minded people. It's difficult because I believe that your reality is created by the collective beliefs of the people around you. And when the people around you are reinforcing your limiting beliefs, it's going to be difficult for you to push through that. And so when you surround yourself with people like this that are reinforcing the ideal version of yourself's beliefs, it's the friction between your current self and your ideal self is decreasing exponentially. And so that's why we all paid money to come to this retreat and to be here with these people in Dubai to experience this. And so I'm so grateful for you guys to be on this podcast with us and to meet you guys for the first time.
No, thank you
And,
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, bro. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.